Hello and welcome to everyone. I hope you're excited for the next panel discussion on green bonds and circular economies, communities. We have Markus, David, Marcel, and Eva Kaili on her way. I'm now going to give the word to Markus. Enjoy the panel discussion and please share the questions you may have in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody, and thank you, Victoria, for having me and for your team. It's really great. So as you mentioned, who is here on the panel? So I'm very honored to be part of this panel. And so we have here Eva Kaili, who is a member of European Parliament, Marcel Bluhm from the Bank for International Settlements, and David Creer from the GFT group. Before we actually start into this, I have a small announcement to make. It's a little bit of housekeeping, or let's say it's compliance related. So basically, right now I'm here in a private function. I'm not representing the EAB group, and hence any views or opinions that I might express here, they're not the views or opinions of the EAB group or any of the my fellow members of staff members. So yeah, that's a little bit of the housekeeping, and that was a little bit of a mouthful, to be honest. But let's see. Another thing, maybe Victoria, I don't know if you, on the housekeeping side, you could perhaps give a little hint when we get like 30 minutes left, 15 minutes left, 5 minutes left or so, so that we don't go too long. Okay, great, perfect. So that's about that on the housekeeping side. Maybe you could briefly introduce yourself. So maybe we start with David and then Marcel, and then when Eva joins, she can also give a brief introduction about yourselves. How about that?
Perfect. So I'm David Creer. I head up the DLT and crypto practice here at GFT Group. Rather than introducing myself, I'll maybe introduce GFT a little bit. GFT are a multinational technology services provider, and we specialize in innovation delivery services. We've done a lot in the DLT and blockchain space. We've been active since 2014. We've done over 30 projects, have a lot in production, a lot out of production. And I suppose we're headquartered in Germany, in Stuttgart, and we have about 8,000 people around 42 different locations worldwide. So more than an introduction to me, which I think you can find on LinkedIn. Great. That's an introduction to GFT.
Great, great. Okay, let's hand over the word to Marcel then, please.
All right, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Marcel Bluhm. I work at the BIS Innovation Hub in Hong Kong as an advisor, and thank you very much for having me here. And I would also like to add a similar disclaimer as Markus. So I'm here in a private capacity, and my views are not necessarily those of the BIS or the BIS Innovation Hub.
Okay, good stuff. I believe Eva joined now as well. Is that correct? Oh, hello, Eva. Eva. Hi.
Thank you. Yes, I was here. Hi.
Great to have you.
Great to meet all of you here. And I would like, of course, to thank the European Blockchain Convention and Victoria and you for having me. So I'm a member of the European Parliament. I've been working on blockchain since 2015 with the rapporteur on the blockchain resolution, the first one that was very positive and innovation friendly. And now I was the rapporteur for the S&D on the DLT pilot regime. We managed to complete the trilogues. I think we had very interesting outcomes, and we managed to create the first European sandbox of blockchain applications that are securities. So thank you. I'm very happy to be with you since it has been a core of my work, blockchain.
Great, great, excellent to have you all here. That's great. Maybe in a few sentences you could, Eva, you already said, but maybe you could explain a little bit your background, or Eva, I think you have already. Marcel, just from a high level, and then we drill down deeper. Marcel and David, basically, what have been your projects, your most recent projects, and then we drill a little bit down further.
Marcel, I don't know if you want to go first, maybe.
All right. Yeah. So I have been working on Project Genesis here at the BIS Innovation Hub in the Hong Kong Center. So Project Genesis is on exploring DLT-based distribution of government green bonds to retail. We have built 2 prototypes, and one of the prototypes was built by the team in which David was, so by Digital Asset and GFT.
Great, great. Okay, David?
So, we've been doing a lot of work really in a lot of different areas, but in terms of the work that's relevant to this discussion, we've obviously worked with Marcel and his team on Project Genesis, and with Digital Asset, our partner there as well. And the other project that we've been working on has been our Smart Communities project, which is around circular economy, circular communities, working with partners such as the government of Trentino in northern Italy, and also Gruppo Eda, which are a multi-utility company from also northern Italy, and that's all around how to use blockchain tokenization to be able to improve the community values, encourage people to be using better types of energy, and basically giving back to the community, and making people use local goods as well. So it has a bit like Project Genesis. It has that focus on retail users, and making them make the right decisions about the way that they use their energy or their retail habits, for example.
Got it. Excellent. Eva, maybe you could give a brief update on what your last projects and involvements are in the blockchain space related to green bonds and circular communities/economies.
Yeah, so I think it's important to talk a bit about DLT pilot regime to explain it, because I don't work on projects, I work on the regulations for projects to be implemented. So it is part of the big digital finance package we had in the European Parliament, and it has for the first time, as I said, a common regulatory sandbox to test and also develop applications, mainly a European primary and secondary market for tokenized assets. So it's I think it is very important because it was successful. I think it's strengthening also the European single market, and of course you can also issue DLT financial instruments, amongst which you can have bonds, including of course the green bonds. So you can have this infrastructure to do that. I think actually BIS and EIB, they have issued green bonds and developed to prototype digital platforms to allow investors to invest on green bonds. So both, they have tested that. So it's very important that we're giving legal certainty for more players to join, and so smaller players to enter. And DLT will allow all transactions to be recorded in a distributed ledger, and expedite and condense trading and settlement to nearly real time. And also it will enable the merger of trading and post-trading activities. I think that this is part, like half, I would say, of the blockchain technology applications that you can see in the finance sector, at least. Besides the MICA file, which is the crypto asset, which is a complementary file. And I don't know if you want me to elaborate a bit more on the bonds, but it includes sovereign bonds and other forms of securitized debt. Depending on the time, I can go into details.
That's great. Perfect. Okay. Maybe you can actually explore a little bit with David what this project in northern Italy, and then let's see about Project Genesis, and maybe Eva, you can later on explore and expand on the regulatory side and what you have just explained. So yeah, David, I'll hand it over to you. Maybe you could explain the Northern Italy project. So what does it do? How does it work? Why is it useful? Who are the stakeholders and all of that? So yeah, if you could shed some light on that, that'd be brilliant.
Sure. So we have it's more of an initiative, I think, rather than a singular project, and we have had a couple of different iterations of it. but it's basically a initiative which we call Smart Communities, and we work with large organizations or local governments to be able to provide a tokenization system which they can use to, as I said before, incentivize people to make the right decisions about the way that they are leading their life within their local communities and with their energy providers. So we've worked with a major energy provider as one of the main stakeholders here, so it's Grupo Era, and we were doing, and this is one of the iterations that we've done, and with that iteration, what we were doing is we were tokenizing the energy usage of green energies. So when people basically sign up for a green energy plan and they have that for a certain amount of time, then they earn a certain amount of tokens based on the amount of energy that they use. And the use of those tokens can then be used for the purchase of other either energy efficient products, such as reductions, for example, on let's say like the cost of a solar panel for your house, or maybe like insulation services for your house, or let's say, I don't know, like a low value, an energy efficient light bulb, or even things that are not necessarily about energy efficiency and energy themselves, but things that are more about reducing emissions in general. So we had a supermarket chain, which was also a part of this consortium, and that supermarket chain, what it basically did is it kind of created for this point system a section in the supermarket which was for products of like what we call like 0 kilometer products. So they're like locally produced, locally sold by local farmers, and those products, if you were part of the Smart Community project or initiative with this one, you would then be able to buy using these point systems, or you would then be able to get a reduction on because they were reducing emissions in general. So that's the general scope of the project. And we also had the local government as well. We also had an initiative, another project with the local government as well, with the Trentino local government, which was the same. It was more about making sure that communities could, for example, in the case of tourism, when people visited towns, that they could basically promote the use of local resources in their towns. So basically giving out reductions for local producers, local cafes, local restaurants, so that people prefer to do that rather than going to third parties. And both of these are now in let's say like pilot stage. We have about 4K people who are using them at this point in time, and we estimate that we're going to have about 20K users in by February next year, if the rollout plan goes as we expect it to do.
Very interesting. So if I understand correctly, the function of the token is a bit like let's say a bonus system. Could it be described like that? Yeah, so it's somewhere between, let's say, like an affiliate scheme and the currency. So it deals with things like, for example, like VAT in the same way that like an affiliate scheme would deal with that. So the scheme itself is obviously all of the members that are part of the scheme then basically have to do their own VAT, pay their own VAT on the products that they're selling. But it can be used for in the kind of like quasi currency status if you have enough points to be able to buy, for example, I don't know, let's say like an electric light bulb or something like that. Okay. That's what I wanted to ask. So the integration with VAT is done, and price finding. How's price finding, for example? So we have like a centralized treasury, and that's part of the centralized treasury.
application. So in the case of Grupo Erde, it's the Grupo Erde which is doing it. In the case of Trentino, it's Trentino which is doing it. So you always have, let's say, one of the consortium members which has a treasury, and that treasury is the person that does the price matching. Another thing to bear in mind:
to stabilize. So you don't need to, it's not floating on a DEX or something, or even
no, and this is actually a private consortium as well. So this is not public blockchain. This is not, we're not using any kind of distributed exchange or anything like that. This is a tokenized system on the private blockchain using a private token system.
What does it run on, if I may ask?
So this runs on Hyperledger Besu. And we've both of the projects now are running on Hyperledger Besu.
Perfect. Okay, cool. In terms of settlement, so the settlement is, settlement is linked obviously to the token. In terms of custody and so on and so on. So, how has been your experience on the uptake and on actually accepting the system and so on and so on?
So it's we've been kind of eking it out with the users of the system, so it's been a kind of gradual process. I think that people also have, because it's something that the people that have access to it get for free. It's most people are just taking it and using it because it's it's advantageous of them to do so. So it's I think that's the main benefit of it, is that like a traditional affiliate scheme, a bit like, I don't know, like let's say like Miles and More of Lufthansa. You're probably not going to say no if somebody says to you, well, look, you can get your coffee free at the airport. Right. Most people are going to do that. So the uptake's actually been pretty positive. And most people who have been offered to be part of the scheme have actually taken it up. That being said, because we are working with local governments, because we're working with like large companies like the multi-utilities company, the process to be able to get people onboarded into that has been slower, because these are kind of like larger organizations, and it has been a multi-year scheme that we've been working on for the past 2.5 years now, I think. So it's not something that's happened overnight, but when people kind of realized that it was available, then they did.
Right, they've been like in consensus. Well, they have been. Let's say they have been warmed up to use the system over time.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay. Hey, I would love to dig deeper, David. But let's see what I know. You've also been involved quite a lot with Project Genesis. But maybe let's have a look here, because we're getting shorter in time. A word from Marcel on Project Genesis, and maybe before getting into that, Marcel, you could explain, please, what the Business Innovation Hub does and how is it related to the rest of Bank for International Settlements?
Right. So the Bank for International Settlements it's an international financial institution which is owned by other central banks. So it's a convener of central banks. And so the main mission is to foster international monetary and financial cooperation. So most of you will know the capital adequacy ratio, which is one of the things that is regulated by the BIS. Now, the BIS Innovation Hub has been set up relatively recently in 2019. And our mission is to explore new technologies that can be used for central banks, and also to explore new technologies which can be used to develop public goods for the global financial system. And we are working in 6 key areas. One of them is green finance, and the other ones are subtech, regtech, financial market infrastructure, CBDC, open finance, and cybersecurity. And yeah, so we are organized in centers around the world. I'm in Hong Kong. We have also a center in London, one in Sweden, one in Singapore, and one in Switzerland. Okay, great. Perfect.
Marcel, maybe you could expand a little bit on Project Genesis then. So similar to what David explained earlier, like what does it do, and so on, what are the benefits, was it useful, and so on. That'd be great.
All right. So in Project Genesis, we explore a DLT-based distribution of government-issued green bonds to retail. And we have been doing this with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority for 2 reasons. First of all, the HKMA is our host central bank. So every center has a host central bank. And the second reason is that in Hong Kong, the HKMA is in charge of government bond issuance. So they were a natural partner to explore this. Mm-hmm. The initial goals which we set when we conceived this project was that we wanted to mobilize and engage retail. So our vision was that a retail customer shall be able to download an app for the cell phone, and via that app gets onboarded to the tokenization utility. That retail customer can then order government bonds in tokenized form, green government bonds, and then has them on the wallet, on the phone, and gets in real time the accrued interest that is due because of the investment, and crucially also a real-time feed on the green impact. So one of the companies that we work together is a company here from Hong Kong, All Infra. They are using IoT and blockchain to read out the green impact, let's say, from a solar panel. So if you imagine that the retail customer helps financing setting up solar panels here in Hong Kong, then the electric output of those panels would be measured by All Infra, the company that participated, and the output is written on blockchain, so this can be verified by the individual retail customers if they want. But this can then be mapped directly up to the very individual investment to a CO2 reduction, which is due to this green bond investment. So that was the rough vision, to mobilize and engage retail. So if they invest, they know my investment is going, let's say, into a solar farm in the new territories. And the second goal, which we had, was to help the government achieve the green targets. So Hong Kong is via China also part of the Paris Agreement. They have green targets, and so this making this green bond issuance to retail more efficient may help them to achieve those targets. And the third goal was to develop and explore a possible new fintech ecosystem. So there's lots of development, innovation going on in the DLT space. And so we think it's crucial to explore this technology and also familiarize market participants with that. So those were the three goals which we wanted to look at and achieve when we conceived the project. The way how we then carried it out was we set up an advisory panel with all stakeholders. So that panel consisted of regulators, supervisors, legal firms. The United Nations were also a part of it. We had tech companies, BIS was there, of course, and the Worldwide Fund. So having all those stakeholders and people that have an interest in green bond issuance, we then did some design thinking workshops to first see, okay, what is the current bond issuance process in Hong Kong? Where are the pain points? And so how can we make this more efficient via DLT, via using this route to digitalize via DLT? Okay. We then had two vendor teams that set up two Genesis prototypes. So each one set up a prototype. One was digital asset and GFT. So they set up a prototype on a permissioned blockchain framework. And the other vendor team, that was the Liberty Consortium from Standard Chartered Bank and Shareable Asset, they were using public blockchain infrastructure. So they were using the Stellar blockchain. And so both prototypes were based on these completely different blockchain philosophies in a way. And so we wanted to see, can both achieve these goals to really digitalize the bond issuance on DLT. And yeah, so overall the project took about a year. In that year, so 4 months were purely due to development of like software development by the two vendor teams. And we were integrated in this development via a sprint integration approach. So we were having lots of sessions with them and iteratively setting up these prototypes. There are 3 reports which can be downloaded from our website. And so prototypes were presented at Hong Kong FinTech Week and also at COP26.
Okay, cool, excellent. If I can put a hook into there, you said actually you're comparing Hyperledger and Stellar, so basically a permission versus an open blockchain, permissionless blockchain. Is that to find out, hey, where the shortcomings on one and the other? Was that also a reason for that, or was it to see, hey, what can we achieve, let's say technically, and so because
there was with the short, we were careful not to make it like a horse race between the vendors. So we rather wanted to have some how to say, but the vendors, they were not really competing or with their technologies. It was more cooperative spirit, and we just wanted to see, look, can this be done on both the public blockchain and the permission blockchain used by digital asset and GFT. There were further differences in the prototypes that were set up. So we asked, for example, the vendor team, David and digital asset, GFT, that they shall really set up a prototype which fits very well in the rather complicated bond issuance framework that we have here in Hong Kong. So I don't go deep into detail there, but so it's an established system. Bonds are bought via banks or brokers. They remain the legal owner of those retail bonds, and then they give beneficial interest to the retail holder. So, and to really fit into this, it's quite, I mean, it's not easy to cover all that. So we asked one vendor team to really be able to completely mimic this and digitalize the system as it is. And the other vendor, the one on the public blockchain, we asked them, okay, show us really how would you set up this process if you would design it from scratch? So let's say if you even go as far to disintermediate, so raise the maximum amount of efficiencies possible. So we also had like differences in the philosophies between the prototypes in that respect.
Good stuff. Excellent. I would like to say a few words about this, but we are running out of time on the aspect of permission versus permissionless. I mean, the way I see it, that okay, the companies who choose it, one is the change management part, right? So if you have a permission chain, then you can control the change and so on and so on. But you have certainly much wider security, much larger security, and more security primitives in the open permissionless blockchain. But then the other reason for going companies into permission is the legal aspect. So is it really the legal wrapper around it and so on and so on, because you can hardly actually stop actually liability. So if you run a smart contract and you know actually a bunch of companies are involved in that, and if something goes wrong, then actually you might have a very, very big risk on being sued, and that would be from the jurisdiction which is most favorable being sued. But let's maybe just wrap up on the point you two have mentioned, David and Marcel, on what was your lessons learned, your major lessons learned on this, and maybe you could expand on the cash lag and these sort of things.
Yeah, so I had basically 3 high-level key learnings there. So the first one is that DLT is suitable for bond issuance across its life cycle. So we digitalized the whole bond issuance process, starting with the term sheet, secondary market trading, onboarding of customers, doing KYC, up to maturity and redemption of the bond. So all this can be done on blockchain. It works, so it's doable. One thing that we found is that so regulation needs to catch up with some respects if one wants to allow, let's say, to get all the possible efficiencies from blockchain. So for example, here in Hong Kong, it is not allowed that retail customers do peer-to-peer trading. On the secondary market that is implemented, this needs, so we did this with the Hong Kong Exchange, who also participated in the project. And so it needs to be done by brokers, basically. So we have intermediaries in there. And even though technologically it's possible to do this peer-to-peer, so this was implemented by the public blockchain vendor team, it wouldn't be allowed to do this by regulation. So it's simply not covered, and it's not a gray area. It would simply not be allowed. And then, so that was the second learning. So that regulation may need to catch up a bit and see what's technologically possible nowadays and in a safe way. So, and then the third point is also related to raising all efficiencies of this DLT technology. Certain key technologies must be in place that are complementary. So CBDC or a stable coin. So you mentioned that the payments leg. We don't have CBDC in Hong Kong. We don't have a regulatory framework for stable coins. So that means that if we would go live with these prototypes, that's, by the way, a very important point. I think I didn't stress that enough. So those were prototypes. We did not go live. The HKMA made an announcement that they are considering doing a pilot next, but that's up to them if they want to take that step. Now on the payments leg, yeah, we ran the prototypes having stable coins to carry out the payments leg in addition to the securities leg. But we also told the vendor teams, look, be ready to implement this tomorrow. And if you want to be ready to implement this tomorrow, then currently the payments leg needs to be carried out off-chain with Oracle technology using the RTGS system here. So this was also implemented. It can be done, but it is not as efficient, and it doesn't come native to DLT to do this off-chain. I mean, that's one of the biggest advantages, that one can do this both on-chain payments leg and securities leg.
And then you have the trust envelope, which doesn't go to, because you're off-chain and so on. You have all these questions around it. Got it.
Yeah. Maybe if I could answer that maybe from a technical point of view, from technology point of view. I think that so I'll try and be quick. I know that we're kind of running out of time here.
Yeah,
I think one of the key takeaways here was the benefits of blockchain to be able to verify the green data that was coming from the IoT devices, and to be able to validate that via their onboard IoT devices connected to the solar panels or the solar farms, and to avoid greenwashing. So all of the stuff that happens down the line, you obviously have a lot of efficiencies from smart contracts, and we worked with DAML smart contracts in this case, but any smart contracts in general, you would have a lot of efficiencies, being able to get rid of intermediaries or whatever, and reduce costs and time. But the fact that you can definitely guarantee that the IoT data was correct is important, and that bridge directly to the IoT data and what All-Infra do and other competitors of theirs is very important work, and I think we'll see more of that in ESG and green bonds in general. And then the other thing is about interoperability as well. So here we were using Canton protocol. So we were basically using DAML smart contracts on top of the Canton protocol, and that Canton protocol was going into two different types of blockchains. So one was Hyperledger Fabric on one side, and the other one was consensus. The other one was Hyperledger Besu. So the fact that these were being used together, and one was run by the HKX, which was the consensus, the Hyperledger Besu, and the other one, which the Fabric, was one for HKMA, meant that each of them could model their own domains as they wanted to, using the right kind of technology for that particular domain. And I think that we'll see probably more of that, and more of those kind of like inter-domain connections in the future, and kind of connections of different domains.
Okay, got it. Okay, I think it's a very valid point. Eva? I think she just left. We still have a few minutes left. Okay. On the coming back on your last point, I think indeed that it's very important to have that, in particular regulation where it's let's say where only procedure controls matter. Like, so I believe of what I see it, if you have IoT devices, there's some companies, for example, I could mention a name, but I better not. So which actually do, I mean, they can basically guarantee the integrity on IoT devices. But when you have the level of the supply chain, there's really the garbage in, garbage out that can happen. You could have an SDK on some of those devices, but then you have to convince those companies. I don't know, Victoria, do you know if Eva will come back? I don't know. Okay, we have still 5 minutes left. If there are questions from the audience, that would be great. No?
Maybe to labor on a little bit more, unless there are any questions from the audience. If there are, then
please go ahead.
But to maybe to labor a little bit more on your last point, I think that with these kind of solutions, that there is also a need for some kind of third party, or like some kind of auditor as well, because regardless of the fact that you have these systems where you can connect up an IoT device to a solar panel to be able to get the information from that solar panel, if you don't have a kind of like third party auditor, or you don't have that kind of role in this kind of network when we kind of go to production, then you could still be effectively whitewashing the product, because it's just down to the people that are using it to believe you that actually is the solar panel that's related to the green bond, etc., etc. So I don't think that we will 100% necessarily get rid of auditors and the role of the auditor in green bonds or ESG completely. But I think that this is a big step forwards to being able to show that transparent green energy data and associate that with financial instruments.
Right.
I think we had a question here.
There are some questions indeed. So David, there's one for you. If you could name the initiative and where can we find more info about it, please?
So the initial initiative that I was speaking about is a Smart Communities initiative. If you go on to our website, there's like a web page just regarding that initiative, and or if you want, you can please just contact me directly, either via LinkedIn or the Umbrella platform, and get more information on that. I think we have a handout as well as part of our booth here in the EBC.
Brilliant. Good stuff. And there's a follow-up. Okay. No, okay. That's not a transfer with a biz between working central green bonds and DRT. I think, so I think just reach out to David and he can fill you in. Okay. I don't know if there are no other questions. I think we're pretty close to finishing. I think we can wrap it up. Okay, guys, thank you very much. It was very interesting. Thanks a lot. Also, Victoria and the organizers and her team, that was great. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Hello.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for great panel discussion. I can see we lost Eva. I'm sorry for that. But yeah, I can see two questions here from Carsten. I don't know if you have 1 second to answer those. Those are probably for Marcel. Did you? Yeah.
It was for David.
Yeah, I see them on screen.
David.
The first one is, are other central banks also duplicating the piloting project by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority? So in Project Genesis, we did not acquire the IP of the prototypes. So what we did, we wanted to show what is possible. And what we found has been put into 3 reports of Project Genesis. So you can go to the BIS homepage, look for the BISIH Hong Kong Center, and then you will find their videos on Project Genesis, but also 3 reports. And so if another central bank is interested in carrying out such a project, then they can build on the learnings that we have, or directly probably approach one of the vendors if they want, or make a public tender. But so we have not, we would not be able to provide the IP of those prototypes to other central banks. And so the second one is related. The second question, how does the knowledge transfer within the BIS work between central bank on green bonds and DLT? So we are closely sharing our findings with the other centers. We are basically having weekly calls. We are presenting the projects to each other. And we are also having projects that are run jointly by some centers. And so for some projects, IP is acquired, and this is in principle be available for other central banks or for other hubs. And for some projects, we don't do that. There's naturally an effect on price, depending on which route one goes.
Good stuff. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you so much
Right.
to the three of you, and thank you also to Eva Kaili. I've just shared in the chat box a link to GFT's booth, so you can reach out to David. I know you had some questions and you want to see a bit more of the papers. If not, you can also find David via the People's tab or on LinkedIn or on Twitter. So yeah, thank you, Marcus. Thank you, David. Thank you, Marcel, and
Thank you.
see you in the next chat.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.